We all know why you're here. You want to be a bone daddy. Well, that's what we're building today. This is the best Necromancer build you can put into your Baldur's Gate 3 game. Now, to start, we are doing a wizard, and this is a very straightforward build. There is no multi-classing, nothing like that. We just need to do wizard, levels 1 to 12. You could dip into cleric, which we will cover at the end of the build, but very simple build. The only thing you need to worry about is completing the Necromancy of Thay questline, and we'll explain that after this as well. But for now, wizard it is. Now, for necromancy, ideally you really want to take any sort of necrotic or necromancy spells you can, Bone Chill being the first one, and then it's pretty much whatever you fancy. Your options here, in my opinion, would be Acid Splash, because in my opinion, acid, poison, cold are very much necrotic, necromancy type things. Blade Ward, only take half damage from bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing, because you might end up taking a bulk load of damage, so I think this is a solid shout, especially early game. And I would personally take Ray of Frost, reduce target's movement by 3, you play into that thing of necromancy and the cold and the evil, as well as slow your targets down. It's perfect. Okay, for spells, again, there's not really much you can do here with the pure and necrotic and necromancy spells. The only thing is False Life, which is a good spell. Gain 7 temporary hit points until long rest. It is really good. Really, really good. It can only have temporary hit points from one source, so please bear that in mind. If you do gain it from somewhere else, and you will if you complete the Necromancy of Thay questline, you wouldn't be able to cast this beforehand. You'd have to wait for those to run out, and then you can cast this and get that extra 7. Early game, though, this is perfect. Your other options, I believe, would be Magic Missile. I think this is phenomenal. This is probably one of the better spells in the game. Not because of how much damage it does, but because of when you get enemies such as Orin, where you have to hit them multiple times to finally get through to be able to do a little bit of damage per round. Magic Missile is your best friend though. Shield, another one. I think Shield's phenomenal. It is a reaction, but it just increases your armor class by 5, and it also allows you to take no damage from Magic Missile. As a reaction, Shield is amazing. The only thing that really, in my opinion, competes with this for a wizard in terms of reactions is Counterspell. Thunderwave is another one. I think Thunderwave is easily one of my top 3 spells in the game, because it's so good for just pushing enemies off of balconies, throwing them into lava, whatever. Something very, very useful. Ice Knife, because once again we're dipping into that cold theme. Ray of Sickness, so this is another necromancy spell, so I would take this. Now when it comes to your ability points, the key one for a wizard is your intelligence. Other than that, I would say it's just Constitution. Reason being is Constitution is what will help you with your... Constitution is what will help you with your saving throws for spells. So your concentrations, that sort of stuff. It's key to have this, because it also gives you extra health, obviously. Dex, again, this plays into your armor class. So I would personally bump this down, bump this up to a 16. You could even really bump your Dex down to a 12 if you wanted to. And then play around and have your Charisma here. Something along the lines of that. But as long as your Intelligence is your highest stat, followed by your Constitution, you can really split between Dex or Charisma. But I quite like how this plays out. And then your skill proficiencies, take whatever you fancy. Okay, now as I was saying, you could do a dip into Cleric here. Reason being is to get to sort of like War Cleric and whatever. Just give you some proficiencies with armors. I'm going to stick with a pure Wizard, though. I think that's the best option for this build. Now, at level 2, we get to pick our specialization. And of course, it has to be the Necromancy one. So this gives us Necromancy 7, so it's cheaper to learn Necromancy spells from scrolls. And Grim Harvest. Once per turn, if you kill a creature with a spell, you gain hit points equal to twice the spell slot level used. Thrice if it's a Necromancy spell. Undead and constructs are unaffected, so basically humans will work perfectly. And from here I would take Mage Armor, because I think that's a very good spell as well. And I would take Tasha's Hideous Laughter. Okay, level 3, and it's pretty much the same as before, we just pick our spells. So, I would take Melf's Acid Arrow. I think this is a really good spell, and again it plays into thematics of your Necromancy, but really here you can take anything. Again, Darkness is really good, Misty Step is amazing, this is one of my favourite spells, so this would be the other one I would take. Things like Arcane Lock is really good, Blur is really good, so you really got a plethora of options here, but for me I would take the Acid Arrow just to play into the necrotic side of things, and Misty Step. Okay, level 4, and we get Another Cantrip, Poison Spray, or Acid Splash, in my opinion, are what to take here. For this, I'll be taking Poison Spray. Okay, we get 2 more spells, and again, it's really dealer's choice. I would personally take Blur, and I would drop down to here and take Long Strider, just to cast it on someone before battle. Now, for your feat, this is the most important part. There are 2 things you can really do here. You could go for an ASI improvement, obviously, and take your intelligence up to 18 in this case, or take your constitution to 16. You could split it and do both. Durable is another option, so increase your constitution by 1, and you regain 4 hit points every time you take a short rest. I think that's great for a wizard. Spell Sniper is really good. You learn a cantrip, and number you need to roll a critical hit with spells are reduced by 1. Again, very good option here. Tough is also another good one, because we are focusing on our constitution a lot for this build, so you would gain 2 extra hit points per level. Warcast, obviously, you gain advantage on saving throws to maintain concentration on the spell. You also use a reaction to cast Shocking Grasp at a target moving out of melee range. So this would be one of the ones I'd take, but to start with, I would take Dual Wielder. You can use 2 weapon fighting, even if weapons aren't light, and you gain a +1 bonus to armor class while you're wielding a melee weapon in each hand. You cannot dual wield heavy weapons. I would take this, and the sole reason being is we will dual wield 2 staffs, and you'll see what that looks like. Okay, we are now at level 5, and we've got some level 3 spell slots. And the first we're obviously going to start with is Animate Dead. This is where the Necrotic Necromancy build really comes into play. So Animate Dead is, of course, the first option. And Counterspell is the other option to take here. I think Counterspell is a phenomenal spell to have for any class, to be honest. So this is a must-have. Okay, so you see we're now level 6. Now you might have been wondering why we take Animate Dead when we now get Animate Dead anyway. It's because with the wizard you can switch the spells in and out. So this just means at level 5 you can start using the ability, and then you can switch out for another one of your spells. We also have access now to Undead Thralls, so better summons. Creatures created with Animate Dead have additional hit points equal to your wizard level, and your proficiency bonus is added to their damage. This is why I would really focus on having a pure level 12 wizard as opposed to, say, a level 10 wizard with a level 2 dip into cleric just for armors and stuff. I can understand the appeal of that. I just feel like it's better to have your summons, because that's what the build is all about, be stronger. And we also have an additional Undead. And again, for spells, you can really take anything here again. I would take Bestow Curse, just because it is a necromancy spell, and if you can get it to work, especially if you have a warlock, you can use a Hex. Now, this is so good. Curse a creature with your touch. The curse either bestows disadvantage on checks and saving throws or attacks. You should do additional damage to target or rob it of its effects. If you can land this on a creature, this can really be crippling. And Haste is another one that's just always really nice to have. Okay, level 7, and we now have access to our level 4 spell slot. And here, obviously, Blight. Plants takes maximum damage from this spell and have disadvantage on saving throws against it. But Blight is a very, very good spell to have. 8 to 64 damage is incredible. And it's an 8d8 necrotic, so you can really do a bulk load of damage here with one spell. The other spell I would take here, and I've used this multiple times in my main playthrough, is Evard's Black Tentacles. 3 to 8 damage, that's not too bad. But tentacles sprout from the ground, turn the area into difficult terrain, attacking and smothering creatures within. This was one of my key spells during the House of Hope fights, during Shadowheart's questline, because it's so good at really crippling the enemies, leaving them stranded and having to walk through very slowly, and you can just hit them with arrows, spells, whatever you need to do to really just dominate the battlefield. Okay, to level 8 we now get our next feat. We also have a health increase to 50. We get to pick 2 more spells here. Again, this is now really whatever you fancy. You could do a Conjure Mind and Elemental to have an extra body on the battlefield. Dimension Door is really helpful, especially in certain areas of the game. I would take Greater Invisibility just because I think it's really helpful sometimes. And my other one would be Fire Shield. You get a 2d8 cold conditional shield, and it provides resistances to cold or fire damage, depending on which one you choose. And this can just be very, very helpful, especially if you're in a area where you know the enemies cast a certain type of spell. This can really make a difference. Now, for your feat, as I was saying, you could do the ASI if you really wanted to. I personally will take Warcaster. Gain advantage on saving throws to maintain concentration on the spell. Use your reaction to cast Shocking Grasp at a target moving out of melee range. So not only does this give you the benefit of having a reaction that you can use to do damage to an enemy if it's close to you, Also, the advantage on saving throws to maintain concentration is insanely good, especially with our high constitution. If you can keep buffing it through items, this is so good. Okay, we're now level 9. We have a level 4 spell slot and level 5 spell slots unlocked. And the only two spells I would take here personally would be Cloud Kill. I think this is, even though it's a conjuration spell, this is obviously very necrotic in nature. Craft a large cloud that inflicts 5 to 40 poison damage per turn. This is so good, and if you checked out my previous build, where we did a Spore Druid Barbarian, if you can use this and then dump your Spore Druid Barbarian in there who's resistant to poison damage to smack everyone inside this cloud, you can do so much damage. And I'll take Cone of Cold. Not only does this play into the necrotic aspect of the build, it's also a lot of damage. Okay, level 10. Now, one of the key benefits here is inured to undeath. You've seeped yourself so completely in death that you're resistant to necrotic damage. And this is huge because there are some big necrotic damage dealers in the game. And moreover, your hit point maximum cannot be reduced. That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. For the cantrip, I would take Acid Splash. We already have access now to Shocking Grasp through our feet. Firebolt is another good option, but Acid Splash just playing the necrotic side of things. And again, you are free to take whichever spell you want here. I would take Dimension Door myself, and probably Wall of Stone, just to help block off anything you might need. If you can throw up a Cloud Kill on another character with like a Scroll or something, or another spell like the Arms of Adar or the Hunger of Adar, and then throw up a wall of stone to block the enemies from getting to you and really keep them trapped within that area of death, really. You're dealing so much damage for people that can't get to you. Okay, level 11, and this is nice and simple. We just have to up our level. And we have access to Circle of Death, as well as Create Undead. Raise a corpse as hideous as a mummy that fights by your side. So this is the key one here. Other things such as Disintegrate I think is really good, but it is force damage. You have things like Sunbeam. This is a very helpful spell. But Circle of Death is the one. Sculpt a massive sphere of energy around a creature. Devastate the target and all surrounding creatures. It is a con save, but again, if you have a Warlock in your team who can hex a certain creature to give it disadvantage or whatever, this is a big damage dealer. And our final level, we now have another feat, and really, spells-wise, that sort of thing, you can take whatever. I would probably take my favourite spell in the game at this point, which is Otto's Irresistible Dance. Cause a creature to start dancing, make it unable to take actions or move. Its attackers have advantage on attack rolls. Dancers disadvantage on attack rolls and dexterity saving throws. This is one of the best spells in the game. In my opinion, it's the best spell in the game. You can throw this on anything. There is no save, so a creature cannot stop saving it. The only thing that will stop it from running up to 10 turns is if you lose concentration on it, which is why we have taken something like Warcaster, which allows us to have that extra benefit of being able to keep our concentration up. So I would take that. And Global Invulnerability is also very good. Obviously, you can't use both in conjunction because they are both concentration spells, but this is another really good spell that if you've just got a barrage of enemies, throw this up, have people stand on the edge so they can't get into the globe themselves, and you can deal so much damage. And for your feat here, if you have the ability to, I would take the ASI, so we will be taking that 16 and 18. Yours might be different depending on what your stats are based on your equipment, but that would be my key thing here, would be to take a feat that would take an ASI improvement and either bump your intelligence up or your constitution. Okay, so we have done our build. We are going to go buy some equipment. We're going to talk about some of the equipment I have, because my builds I like to do so you don't have to worry about having equipment with them. But I'm going to show you some good equipment you could potentially have, just to really buff this up a little bit more, and then we'll go into a battle. So, let's get going. Okay, so you can see we're now in our inventory. So to begin with, the dual wielder has now come into play because we have two staffs. Now the reason we've done this is because of the versatility it will give you. So we now have, this is just an example, because I couldn't really find any other staffs based on where I am in the game with my save file. But, for example, depending on what staffs you can find, you now have access to more spells. For example, we now have Rare Sickness, as well as having Spiritual Weapon. So we can now have these extra two spells that aren't part of our spell slots. We don't need to worry about having them. But we now have access to this. And if you can find some other staffs that have spells that you like, or spells that you've got. For example, we can now drop Rare Sickness from our spell list and take something else and still have access to Rare Sickness. This is perfect. When it comes to cloaks, the two I have currently that I think would work really well with this build is the Devoration Cloak. When you poison a foe, heal yourself for 1d4 hit points. Considering we have a bunch of poison spells as well as our necrotic, I think this is great. Or Cloak of Displacement. This would be the one I would take. At the beginning of the wearer's turn, the cloak activates, granting enemies disadvantage on attack rolls that target the wearer. Disadvantage on attack rolls means it's harder to hit you, which means it's harder to lose concentration on the spells that you have. For boots, I think the evasive shoes are really good. Don't really need to worry about the acrobatics +1, it's the armor class +1 that really helps here, because once again, if you're harder to hit, it's harder to lose your concentration. For clothing, or your main armor I should say, I think the Graceful Cloth is really good. You gain Cat's Grace and increase your dexterity by 2 to a maximum of 20. So once again, a higher dex means a higher AC means harder to be hit. It also gives us advantage on dexterity checks and only take half damage from falling. Damage itself isn't too bad, but it's the advantage on dexterity checks that's really good for us. And for gloves, I think quick spell gloves are insane. Cantrips that cost an action cost a bonus action instead. This effect can be used once per short rest. So that means if you really want to just deal a little bit of extra damage, you can use one of your cantrips as a bonus action and then still cast some of your necrotic main spells. Other than that, the gloves of Belligerent Skies, where it gives you thunder damage, lightning damage, or radiant damage, inflict 2 turns of reverberation upon the target. Now, reverberation. Affect entities have a -1 penalty to strength, dexterity, and constitution saving throws. This is perfect because a lot of our spells do rely on constitution failing, so this really helps you. Not only that, but when the entity has 5 or more turns of reverberation, it takes 1 to 4 thunder damage and possibly falls prone. So if you can throw around your lightning damage or your thunder damage that we have got spells for, you can really debuff these enemies, make them easier to cast things on that will leave them prone for longer, as well as continually deal damage over time. Okay, now this is a spoiler, but this is one of the best perks to being a Necromancer in the game. The Necromancy of Thay questline is a book you can find in Act 1. Now, I won't spoil how to complete the quest, but please just note, you start the quest in Act 1, and you cannot finish it until Act 3, so this is part of an end game. But the result of this is that you get 2 things you can now use in the game. Once you complete this questline, depending on the character you complete it with, they gain 20 temporary hit points by the Codex every long rest. Now this lasts until long rest, and it's every long rest. As soon as you long rest again, you get all 20 back. 20 extra hit points is a lot. The other benefit is you can cast Dance Macabre, which means you create 4 ghouls that fight alongside you. Now to do this, you do not need corpses, so please bear that in mind. No corpses are needed, you just magically conjure them up. Okay, so to show you just how this build works, we're going to pick a fight with these guys. Now, the key parts of this is, as I said, create undead. So this will give you a bunch of ghouls. We also have animate dead, so create an undead servant from a corpse. And you get a bunch you can do here. So if we were to come here, let's say we want some zombies. We'll do level 4, Zombie Battalion. We can raise him, and we can raise him. And now we have 2 zombies. We can then couple this with Dense Macabre, which we get from the Necromancy of Thay when it decides to work. Like that, and now we have a bunch of undead followers. So we'll pick a fight. Let's say we did Cloud Kill. We'll do it at level 6, because why not? And we'll pop it here. Now again, we've got our reactions, so we could do a shield. You'll see we took no damage. Now the attempt is we're going to keep as many of these people alive as possible, because I really want to show you just how much of an army you can build with this. But you can see in the turn order how many ghouls we have. We have a small army of people here. And they will act freely, but you can see they will just swarm the enemy. And just do crazy amounts of damage. And as you can see, we saved our concentration saving throw for Cloud Kill. Now again, we are stuck in a little bit of a pickle here, so we would do something drastic, such as a Misty Step to come here. And you can see our dex is so good that they managed to miss a swipe at us. We're out of the cloud kill, which means we'll stop taking damage from it. And we are now to some form of safety, which means next turn we could throw them off the edge, something along those lines. But you can see just how much damage Cloud Kill is doing. 22 hit points of damage there. And the ghouls themselves are very strong. They're taking not a lot of damage from these creatures. And please note, as you just saw there, they are immune to Cloud Kill, and they've just summoned another zombie from killing one of the enemies. And again, that is why Counterspell is so good. They are now continually trapped here. Again, 25 damage just from one spell is amazing. And again, if you couple this with my Druid Barbarian build, you can just stand in Cloud Kill, keep the enemies there, and they will just, unfortunately, get hit really hard. Now, as you can see, some of these zombies are controllable. These ones are the ones you summon, I believe, not the Dance Macabre. So we can throw them into over here. And as you see, there is one enemy now left, and they are just going to swarm him, all these ghouls. And from here, we can do whatever we really want to do. We could do a Ray of Sickness. This will hit them and do some damage.
Another day, another fight.
Just continually poisoning them. And yeah, this is the beauty of this build, is that the enemies will just swarm. And now it's pretty clear this guy is going to die, and will probably become a zombie in our team. We'll see how this plays out. And there you go. Okay, so now the battle's over, we can animate more undead. We could do this, and we can now summon some skeletons. So we will take him, and there's this one. Not enough space. Of course not. So come over here. This is the problem of having so many people on the battlefield. Animate dead. Bring some skeletons in. We'll grab this person and this person. And now we have two more thralls, and you can see here how many we have. It's crazy. And these will just keep following you, so we can now take this into another battle, for example. You can see just how big our squad is here. It's crazy. They're all still alive. You can keep summoning this as long as you have the ability to. You've still got all your other spells. You haven't really had to do much damage because they will do the damage for you. Because we lost our 20 temporary hit points, we can now do something like False Life. And this will give us a bunch of health. And the higher level you cast it, the more hit points you'll get. We'll just do it at level 1. And there you go, we've got an extra 7. But we have things like Arcane Recovery. So if we were to do this and recover some Arcane levels, we can continue to create more undead. We can continue creating Cloud Kill, leaving the enemies inside there, letting the ghouls get to them, and just dealing so much damage. And like I said, if you couple this with our Spore Druid Barbarian from yesterday, who's immune to all poison, dump them in the battlefield in the middle of this massive Cloud Kill with all these ghouls, and you can just do a tremendous amount of damage without the enemies ever getting to you. I really hope you've enjoyed this guide. If you have, let me know in the comments below. What would you change about it? What would you do differently? Let me know about that in the comments below. If you haven't already, please drop the video a like, helps me amazingly. If you're new and you're not subscribed, you'd like to, that'd also be amazing, and hopefully guys, I'll see you in the next one.